Welcome back to the class, everyone. Today we are going to be taking a look once again at some 3v3 prep. As we've mentioned previously in videos, and you probably already know, next month 3v3 is coming back, and there's still a lot that we need to look at. There's a lot of things that have changed over the last 7 months that we have no idea how it's going to affect the upcoming 3v3, and where some places we made a lot of investment, whether it be with relic mats or with zetas or with Omicrons, which is primarily what we're going to look at today. These things are going to be affected in this different quote-unquote game mode. So that being said, what we have here on screen right now is just the most common Omicrons. I just wanted to notice, because these are the ones that we're really going to be talking about. With the exception of Chirpa and Admiral Akbar, I do not have either of these two. I think they're definitely more beginner game Omicrons. Not that they're bad, especially I actually really like Chirpas. But we're going to be looking at the other 5 most common besides them. So we're going to be looking at Qui-Gon Jinn, Wampa, Zam, Iden, and Dash, and basically giving this a rationale of, number one, are they going to be better? Are they going to be worse? Because that helps us also know where to make our investments. We all have limited resources, so if we want a character that's going to be good in both 5v5 and 3v3, we might gravitate more towards that. But also, where we're going to use them. And some of these are a lot easier to use than others. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. We will pull up our game here. And we're going to start kind of worst to best. So, sorry, Zam, you are such a hero. You're such a great character in 5v5. But man, is she going to tank in 3v3. There's a few reasons for that. Number one, the bounty hunters, the team, is just made to have all 5 characters. If you're trying to set up this perfect combo with Bosk and Grief so they can both use their mass attacks, with Aura Lead so that you can hit anyone and still get your contract, with Mando in there to help you get the turn meter and get the Annihilate. I mean, if you can count, you can see that we're already at 5 characters. There is no way to accurately replicate that in 5v5 or 3v3. You can do it in 5v5, but in 3v3 you have to start pulling those. And not to say that bounty hunters are trash in 3v3, they're really not. They're actually very good. But Zam's place in that becomes very weird because she was really just there to give them a massive speed boost. But she doesn't replace them. She can't replace Mando. She can't replace Grief. Furthermore, we're not going to do a huge analysis here, but her Omicron, it bases its stats off of how many other bounty hunters she's with. So she gains 5% speed for each other bounty hunter ally. She's now going down to half that. So not only is she going to be giving it, or she's going to be getting less speed because there's less allies there, she's going to be giving out less. So she's going to drop dramatically in viability. I think there's still probably a place for her. Maybe not for me, but I think with Dadbod, Boba, and Fennec, as much as I'm not a huge fan of Dadbod in GAC, I think that's probably going to be her place. Because the golden trio for bounty hunters is still going to be Bosk, Grief, and Mando. I think that's really where her place is going to be, and that's not super great. But, okay, enough negativity. Let's go ahead and get on to a slightly better character in 3v3. That's going to be Dash. Dash is actually going to be pretty redeemable in 3v3, depending on the comp you leave on defense. In our previous video that we had on Legends characters, we gave 2 comps for him. Number 1, you can use him alongside Han and Chewie, or you can leave him alongside L3 and Vandor. And I think what characters you choose to put him with is really going to determine the validity of this. Because the big thing about the Omicron in Grand Arena, it's actually really simple. If they lose prepared, they gain prepared. So if you have them with Han and Chewie, you know, they don't really lose prepared. So they're going to be just fine. However, you're going to run them with L3 or Vandor or Kira or something like that. I guess Young Han fits in there as well. Characters that are going to be consistently consuming the prepared, you're going to want it. So depending on which way you lean, it can be good or it can just be entirely useless. So I think more relevant than Zam's, but at the same time, not the best Omicron for 3v3. Next up is going to be Iden. I'm actually really excited to see what Iden does, and I'm a little relieved too because the troopers in 5v5 are in such high demand. Like, we can't break off and make fun little teams, because if you want to make the 2 good trooper teams, you need all of them. And none of this is going to be negated, and it's actually even going to be easier to hit in 3v3 because she has all these funky special exceptions, like where she can't have droids or she can't have people who don't have a leader tag, and they all have to be Imperial troopers. That's going to be easier to hit with only 2 allies, and all of these, very different from Zam, these are across the board bonuses. I don't want to call them flat because some of them are percents, but none of this is dependent on having more of them. Like, they're always going to have a 100% counter chance. They're always going to have a 35% max health and protection. They're always going to have 35 speed. None of this is dependent on that, and the team entirely gets to function that way. As for which two she gets, I think the lock is probably going to be Stormtrooper. Shore Trooper has a lot more viability being a pre-taunt, whereas Iden, she can kind of get things going right off the rip, so Storm is probably the obvious choice. And now I prefer Death, but there are some people out there who are going to be wanting to use Krennic with Death, because again, 3v3, we have to split things up and run things differently. But I think he's going to be best, and if you can't spare him, then the next one is just going to be Snow, and you're just going to hope you stack up enough damage that Snow and Ida can just start killing people, which, with there being less survivability in 3v3, because, you know, you have less healers or less tanks or whatever it may be, that should be pretty possible. So, yeah, Iden, Storm, and then Snow or Death is the last one. And I think she really fits the middle. She won't be different from Dash and Zam. Zam, I think, gets significantly worse. Dash is more conditional, where he's going to be either, his Omicron's going to be useless, or it's going to be really, really good. I think Iden's middle ground, where she's probably going to hold a lot of viability from 5v5. It's still going to be really annoying having to deal with the massive amount of turn meter they get when you assist. And it's, again, it's really surprising the amount of characters that continue to assist, or the amount of teams that are always going to have a sister despite being 3v3. There's just so much of that in the current game, or countering, I guess, as well. So now we're going to move on to the second best, and that is Qui-Gon Jinn. Qui-Gon Jinn is still going to be really, really great, and for very similar reasons that Iden is going to continue to be great in 3v3, because these are just bonuses across the board that do not live or die on how many characters you have. And also, what makes a good Qui-Gon Jinn team? There's only one element, and it's Jedi Knight Anakin. You can vary that team. You can put other good characters in there. You can put Cam, you can put Ahsoka, you can put Mace, you can put Ayla, you can put Shock, you can put JMY, you can put a really trash Galactic Republic in there so that they trigger Jedi Knight Anakin more easily. There's a lot of different options you can do, but the one thing you have to have is Jedi Knight Anakin. So even if there were a 2v2 game mode, these two would just absolutely rule. So I think the comp that I'm going to be running is going to be Qui-Gon Jinn, Mace, and Jedi Knight Anakin, because I'm going to want a Taunter, and I don't think I'm going to need really Mace in any other aspect of the game. So that is going to be most likely the comp that I'm going to be running. I think we're going to try it on offense in the very beginning. I don't know if that's going to be the ultimate choice. It might be better on defense, because a lot of the big teams that we needed in 5v5 to control Qui-Gon Jinn, they needed multiple elements on their team at the same time. I know that I've had more than one match where Jedi Knight Anakin resists the initial stun, despite, you know, me having a ton of potency on my tech. And then I just go in with Wrecker, and he's stunned for 2 turns now, so it's no big deal. Well, in 5v5, or in 3v3, I only get one of those characters. It works the same if you use an Empire as well. You can't just ability block with Vader, push everyone back with Gideon, and then fracture Jedi Knight Anakin while gaining a lot of turn meter with Emperor Palpatine. Like, you only have so many tools to use against this team. So I think it's going to be really, really, really strong. And these teams that have the capability of pulling a GL in 3v3 are significantly more valuable, because now there's more teams to take out. To throw a GL away on a non-GL team is one thing in 5v5, but it's really bad in 3v3. So I think that team is going to be one that's going to be really, really hard to take down. And the winner, the overall best Omicron for 3v3 is going to be Wampa. And I think this is different in 5v5. I would definitely not argue that Wampa is the best Omicron for GAC in 5v5. He's definitely going to be for 3v3, because at this point, so maybe the largest rosters with 10 million GP, they're going to be able to do this, but it's going to be so hard to make a board that Wampa isn't just going to get to solo something. And at the height of that, I'm not sure exactly what's the best team out there that he's going to be able to beat, but he's going to have a ton of options. We've seen this in the past with Nest. Nest and Wampa, they kind of have different mechanics, but at the end of the day, one of the big weaknesses that they both have is tenacity down. There's only so much tenacity down in the game. They can't put it on every single team. So that being said, Wampa is always going to have an option to eat something, and getting to use one character as a whole team is still really, really awesome. And I don't I can't think of any of his normal counters that he's just going to magically start losing to. He should still be able to beat GG handily, should still be able to beat Iden handily. Those were his big two. The C counter is kind of out there. I don't know how many people are going to be setting C with Malik. That could also be very problematic. But he is going to be the winner. I think his viability, not in the sense that he's going to be able to beat better teams in 3v3, just that there's always going to be a team for him to beat, and probably some pretty good ones at that. So those are going to be the 5. That's how we're going to be using them. Wampa's best. Qui-Gon Jinn's going to go up in viability. Iden should be about the same. Dash, depending on how you use them, will be good. And sorry, Zam. You can come back. We'll see you back in 5v5. That is going to be it for today, guys. Thank you for watching. And remember to like and subscribe. And as always, stay awesome.